Hi there, and welcome to Lion Illustration. This is anatomy tutorial for character drawing, and today we're going to talk about hands. There's a moment in life when we start realizing how things really are. Until then, as kids, we feel capable of drawing anything, because whatever we draw, as long as it follows some basic iconography rules, it represents itself clear.
For instance, if we draw a series of yellow, red, or orange strikes, it's clear that we're doing fire. Any big blue mass represents the sea. Whatever animal shape, either if it has 3 or 5 legs, as long as it has a long nose, we understand it as an elephant.
But when we're around 6 years old, we start recognizing depth, perspective, volumes, anatomy. That is why around this age, a lot of kids quit drawing, since we start to find it way more difficult than before. Here's where the hands, that had been whatever shape we wanted, as long as they had 5 sticks around, turn into one of the most difficult things to draw. And we'll start hiding them. The hiding hands period consists on finding whatever excuse so the characters don't show their hands. They all have it behind their bodies, behind a tree, on their pockets, or maybe always closed. But we can't keep doing that if we want to succeed at drawing. We're here because we want our characters to have a good pair of hands, so they can play the piano, hold a cup, clap, slap, or keep them next to the body just for the thrill of standing right there. I hope you have some pen and paper because we're about to begin. For starters, we're going to see the hand anatomy and we're going to simplify it. Many people, when they have to deal with drawing a hand, fear it because they consider that it's practically drawing a whole new body with all its body parts. But the reality is that the hand's anatomy is way simpler than that.
When drawing an open hand, you have to make a shape, 2 times longer than the width. Just like the body, these measurements will change once we get to transform it into a final character or style. But before getting there, we're going to make sure we understand the basics. You might have already noticed that hands can be easily divided into groups, the base and the fingers. And with the fingers, on one side we got the thumb, and in the other we have the whole rest of them. If we are dividing a hand on easy shapes, grouping all the fingers in some sort of mitten is a nice way to work. Working with simpler shapes is easier and helps us building poses that we can understand clearly and leave the detail for later.
This trick is very helpful since we as people usually don't find ourselves in poses where we are opening our hands wide with fingers facing all different directions. The usual is that these 4 fingers are normally following the same curves.
I hope everything's clear and easy until this point. The next step is a tricky one, because just as in the other parts of the body, it's on the flexing points where we have to pay extra attention. If we start drawing a hand that is attached to the arm, think about this joint as a third element. It's a piece that we don't see, but it's what allows the movement. Don't mistake the base of the hand with the wrist joint, because they are independent pieces. The next flexing point is a tricky one, the knuckles. If we see a hand's bone structure to check the flexing points, the reality is that these are in a curved shape. But don't lose yourself into detail, and let's keep it as simple as possible for now.
I used to work in an art academy, and there's one thing that the students that did well had in common, and it is mastering all the steps one by one, before hurry for getting to the end. The pupils who skip steps to get to the finish line faster wouldn't get to ever do it right. I think that this that I just told you, it's the most important advice that I can give. Don't lie to yourself to pretend to be better and start mastering the basics.
So, we have our hand at the same height, divided in between fingers and a base. The knuckles at the end of the metacarpals that stick out. The fingers are also divided in the middle and the last part is divided too. Okay, here's the tricky part. When the hand bends, the knuckles keep themselves on the base, since they are the end of the bones here. But the separation between fingers doesn't come up until later. Look at your own hand, bent from the top. As you can see, there's a still united skin, and the fingers division doesn't come up right on the knuckles. So you can see that the place where the hand is divided is not such thing as the bending point. The bending point is a little farther down, where the knuckles are. After this bending point, we would have the proximal phalanges, which bend in the middle of the finger, and the middle phalange that bends with the distant phalange, which is the shortest. To make the thumb, we divide the bottom part of the hand in two, and at that height, it comes out. If it's extended, it gets it to the middle of the hand. If you make it closer to the hand, it reaches the first phalange.
Once we understand the hand's divisions, it's way easier to recreate any pose. It's time to check some hand pose references. In this specific case, I would very much encourage you to use your own hands or take your own photos and videos. You can always find references on the internet, but the learning process from your own hand will help you understand it quicker. So in the future, you might not even need pictures, and you can work just by looking at it. Something that I truly encourage every artist to have nearby is a mirror, so you can work on poses and also facial expressions. The inner cam on the phone can also be used as a mirror, even if it doesn't have a very good quality. We don't want very high quality pictures. We just need them to be clear enough to help us with the pose. Are you ready to start drawing? Now let's make some exercises and put those mittens to work. For your first exercise, I would recommend you to get hands in very different gestures and points of view, and try to pay extra attention locating correctly the placement of the knuckles, the bending point, and the correct size of all the parts. If the easy shapes are still a little difficult, you can start by getting some pictures and drawing the mittens on them before you get to draw them by yourself. When you think that you have mastered the mittens, it's alright to get to the next level. It's time to get into detail, but keeping it simple.
For starters, we're going to make the curve that will make our hand's shape way more organic. Each finger is at a different height, where all the flexing points follow an arc that repeats from the tips to the knuckles. Each hand has two sides, the palmar and the dorsal. The palmar part is the one inside. We could say that it's more meaty. To recognize this side, I usually draw one line for each flexing point, and another simple one to represent the volume up to the thumb. This is called a thenar. On the other side, the most recognizable part are the nails that begin around the middle of the distant phalange. I also make a couple strikes on the flexing points, since they are quite a lot. Some strokes to showcase the knuckles, and depending on the character, I would mark more the tendons that connect each finger with the wrist. These are what we can see clearer when the hands are in tension. The lumps that come up are the tendons, not bones. Also, some veins are usual in most adults.
The next step is something you already knew was coming. Get some references and start drawing again. You can start with the ones that you already know from the mittens exercises and work from there. Remember to keep always in mind the size of each part, the bending point, and if something looks too difficult, you just need to go back to the easier shapes and then work from there. Have you mastered the basic hand already and you want to get it to the next level? If you're at this point, then it's the moment to push the design. Just like bodies, the hands come in lots of shapes and sizes. Let's look at some famous hands designs.
Wreck-It Ralph hands are extremely geometrical. You could simplify all the shapes of this hand with squares. But at the end of the day, they do work just like a couple of regular hands. On the opposite side, we can find hands like Victor's from Tim Burton's The Corpse Bride. His hands are extremely long. Not only that, but also his fingers are longer even if we had stretched the proportion.
We could take more examples, but why don't you do it? Find some of your favorite characters and analyze their style. Break down their hands on easier shapes and learn how their style works. For sure you will find a lot of different takes on the basic anatomy. This was all for today, guys. I'll see you in the next video for this anatomy tutorial for characters. If you want to be the first one to watch the rest of the videos, check my Patreon/Lion Illustration. It is available for all the memberships, even the $1 tier. I'm going to leave the link down below. And again, thanks for watching. If you have any doubt or suggestion, leave it in the comments and see you guys next time.